Joel here. I'm going to record another small project I'm working on. This is a Govee light curtain. I bought this 3 or 4 years ago, and it's been hanging out here for that time, and it's worked great. But this is a 2-unit panel. What happened is the one panel burned out, and I can't get it, revive it. So I bought a Govee Curtain Light 2, which I'm going to replace this unit with. And I want to correct a few issues. Over time, as the elements hit this, heat, cold, wind, these strands, they're supposed to have the LEDs all facing one direction. Well, they've twisted. So some face forward, some face back. So it doesn't give a nice crisp display when you're putting your images up here. So I'm going to hopefully correct that with my new design. And you know, as we get some big winds here, I mean, this thing, it's okay to blow this way, but sometimes it's going back and forth, and that's putting strain on these strands here. You can see the one actually broke off there. And so I want to put some bracing in place so this thing won't swing back and forth as violently in high winds. And the last thing I want to correct is along the top, there's a little bit of a slope from the slope of the cable going between these two trees. And I want to make that more straight so we have a more pure rectangle for the light display. So my new design hopefully will do that too. So we shall see. So I've laid out the materials you'll need and the tools you'll need, and let's go through those. Okay, as far as materials, you're going to need a 10-foot, half-inch piece of rebar. You're going to need this garden plant mesh. These are, I think they're like almost 3/4 inch squares. This is 5 foot wide, and I cut it to be 182 inches long. And then you're going to need 2 pieces of this cable. You can get it at the hardware store. Make these 13 feet long. There's 2 of them because they're going to be like a cross member to stabilize the unit. You're going to need a piece of 10-foot, half-inch black pipe, and also another piece of cable 11 foot long that's going to stretch end to end, which is what we actually mount the Govee modules onto. And then you're going to need some C-clamps for the end of each rebar and pipe on each side. As far as tools, have some duct tape handy just to temporarily tack things down, a screwdriver, ratchet, scissors to trim the plastic stuff, and these are to take off zip ties. Get yourself some zip ties. It's a pack of 1,000, and they're rated for being outside, so the sun won't deteriorate them too badly. And then you'll also need a stool to be able to work on the top of the panel. Now what I've done is I made a little fixture for mounting the pipe. I have 2 ladders. I put this 2x4 up there and put a nail in here. So one end of the pipe will go on here, and then the other end of the pipe will go right here. Put these things 82 inches high. Okay, so the very first thing you want to do is you want to get your pipe up in the air, put it on this side over here, and then this side over here. And now we're ready. Okay, so let's go ahead and throw our netting over there. Just make sure it's even on each side. I mean, it's not critical, but actually it is critical. You want all the boxes to exactly line up. So you grab one corner and you could pull it to get that one. And then the same over here. Grab this one and pull it. And now we got it evenly hung down here. Pull this over to where the on the pipe where the thread starts. Don't have it on the thread. You don't need to have it on the thread. So let's do the other side. Okay, now comes the precision part. You can line this up, maybe put the very edge on the first thread because it'll kind of make it stick there. But what you need to do is you need to line up these squares so that the line all the way across is going to be perfectly parallel with the pipe. So you get it lined up, and then get yourself some zip ties. What you want to do is you want to zip tie loosely. You got two sides of this, two sheets hanging down, so you want to grab a corner with a zip tie of both of them and then anchor that. So now you have a reference point. And then grab a piece of tape and just tape this down. That way you're free to pull this way as you work your way down the strand. So you don't have to do it like every interval or anything like that. Just, you know, eyeball it, make sure that you got your parallel line going all the way across. This is kind of like the most important part, because with these being squares, you can get everything to line up perfectly, and you know, get your LEDs to be perfectly lined up just by, you know, relying on parallel lines here. Now, when you get to the middle, okay, so I'm at the end of this first strand. I'm going to overlap by one square. Okay, so I have all four of these tied together here, and now I'm ready to start putting up the second mesh panel, following the same parallel line all the way across. Okay, so the center here, where we tie these two panels together, you really want to secure it well. I have zip ties on each side there going all the way down, and as I go down further, you actually get them closer together because you don't want them to be pulled apart when we put the bottom onto this thing. All right, so the next step is to grab your scissors, and you want to cut this all the way down where it ends, just right where the thread begins on the pipe. Okay, so the next step is this coated cable that we bought. We're going to weave it through here from one end all the way down to the other end. So you just kind of, this is really quite the sewing project. Except for we're not sewing with needles and thread, we're sewing with steel and plastic mesh. So you just, every other loop, you loop it through there until we get to the very end. This cable I'm weaving in here, it actually serves two purposes. The first, as I previously mentioned, is it's the thing that we're going to tie the Govee light strand into, the headers. The other thing it does by weaving it here is it brings these two meshes together so that there's no separation in them. Well, there's a little bit, but you know, for all practical purposes, they're a single plane. All right. So after you pull that through, make sure everything is still copacetic, and we'll move on to securing the cable next. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect the cable that we strung across and sewed it into the net, and this other cable. There's two of these what we're going to use to make cross bracing. So both of those cables tie into this hose clamp here. So what you do is, the nice thing about having this thread on the end of this pipe is when you tighten this hose clamp, it digs into the cable, so it holds it very, very strongly. So you pass this cable, the coated one, that's going to hold the light strands through the clamp, and you want to position it just like just slightly above the bottom by about 10 degrees or something like that. And then the cross brace cable, string it this way so it'll pull down like this, so it'll be pulling up against the clamp. So you put it in this way. And don't worry about how much you put in there, because we're going to actually, when we set up the cross bracing, you can make the adjustments down on the bottom, as you'll see in a future portion of this video. So we got our cables in place. Now I've already done this on the other end, so that means the cable that we strung through here, I can pull it tight, as tight as I can get it, and then I'm going to tighten this thing down. Okay, it looks the same on the other side. And you can see the cross brace cable here. It's going to come across like this. So you can see the cable here. It's a natural tendency for it to come down a little bit no matter how tight you get it. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a couple of zip ties along the way here, just to keep it as close to the pipe as possible. All right, I put a total of 7 zip ties, so we got nice straight path now across for hanging the Govee strips. All right, we're coming into the home stretch on building this panel. The next step is to use our rebar. You know, you bought a nice straight piece. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfectly straight, but the straighter the better, because you don't want to see waves in the mesh. But if it's fairly straight, you should be good. Let me show you a quick technique I found for if I got a little bend and I want to straighten it out a little bit. It worked pretty good for me. So the thing about trying to bend the rebar to get it as straight as possible, you know, this has got this big long 10-foot bar, and it's hard to just hold it because it's, you know, iron and bend it in a certain place. So what you can do is, let's say I wanted to bend it right here, put it between the 2 back tires of your car, which will secure it, and then you could pull up here to cause it to bend right where it's being held by the tire here. So it worked for me. You just got to, you know, do gentle bends, or otherwise you can get a big L that you don't want to see. But you could try that to straighten it if you don't have a straight piece. Okay, so we're ready to sew or weave this rebar into the mesh, okay? And, you know, the way this rebar is set up is it's got all these ridges along here, which is nice because it'll hold, you know, it holds the strands that go over it in place. You don't have to do any other fastening, anything like that. And so this is like self-fastening system here. One thing I suggest you do, though, is run your hand down the whole length of the rebar. I don't know how they make this stuff, but I ran into like 2 little sharp things that were wrapped around it, and that would cut the mesh, and you don't want that to happen. And I just grabbed some pliers. I was able to just peel those things off. It must have been some kind of binding or something in the manufacturing process. So I had 2 of them. So check yours, make sure you don't have any. And then let me show you how we're going to do this this weaving. All right, so you want to weave it into a row that is, you want like 78 inches from the top of the rebar to the bottom of the pipe on the top. So I measured that off. I put a little marker on there, and that'll, the strings themselves are like 76.5 inches. So it gives you like an inch play between the bottom of the string and the rebar. Here we go. We're going to weave this rebar through this material. Every other square, you just pass it through like this. It's like we're sewing. So I remember when I took home ec class, I never thought I'd be sewing something like this. I'm just kind of weaving back and forth here. You're just kind of gathering a bunch at the end. And then every so often, after you gather a whole bunch, you got this clump here, and you got to pull it all back down the line here. So it's pretty it's easy, but you know, this is a lot of little steps here. I think you're doing this for 10 foot. So when you get to the middle here, make sure you maintain the right spacing count here. I got off and I was doing one of them at 3 and the other one at 2, so I had to unweave it. So just a word of warning as you continue past the middle. Of course, you can see I got a helper here. Not. Of course, you got to take breaks, as the cats define. All right, we got about four more foot to go. Making some good progress here. We're weaving with a iron needle. Yeah, this project it's kind of easy, but it's just very repetitive steps in the build. It's an exercise in patience, and patience is such a good thing to have in life, isn't it? Patience will get you through many things. It's a real virtue, something we all have to work at, because we want patience and we want it now, and it doesn't work that way. Of course, I think patience, some people have a propensity for patience and others don't, and so it's harder for them to develop patience, but it's not impossible. Where there's a will, there's a way, right? Okay, and there we have the entire rebar weaved into the bottom. Do a couple sanity checks, like follow a line, make sure it goes straight across there, which this one does. Make sure on the ends that you have about, it looks like about 1.5 inches on each end. I think we're good. On to the next step. Okay, after you've weaved that rebar into this plastic material, it should look like this. Inspect your work. You should have a straight line all the way across, straight block all the way across here. And these aren't going to line up perfectly, but you know, the vertical should line up and the horizontal should line up. And if they have the same offset all the way across, that's fine too. So now the next thing we're going to do, and I want to show this to you, is we're going to add some stabilization to it. See how the thing, it moves back and forth. So we got these cross braces that we're going to put on. And that's an easy thing to do. Remember those wires we had in the corners there? we're going to just fasten those wires into a clamp here. All right, so you're going to grab this diagonal, which is attached at the top right, and you take it down to the bottom left. Get your hose clamp, and then run the wire, loop it through this way. But don't tighten it all the way, because you have to put the other one up also, and then you can like adjust it, because you don't want to have one pulled too far and it gets it out of square. So you have to kind of adjust them simultaneously, or do the one and then the other, get it perfect, and then tighten it down. All right, the stabilizer cables are in. They're adjusted. The cross point is about 40 inches from top to middle to bottom. And as you can see, it gets rid of a lot of that sway now. So this thing will be very stable in high wind. So the panel is built, the mounting panel, and so now comes the fun part, and that is installing the Govee Curtain 2 lights onto it. Okay, now that our panel is all built and ready to go, we're ready to hang the Govee Curtain Light 2 up. Your box should look like this. This is a 2-panel system. You got your instructions in there. These boxes here contain each light panel, nicely packaged. Can you imagine working in a factory having to do this all day? So what you get here, this is one light panel, and then this is like the driver for it, and this, you're going to see this hooks down the line to the other light panel. So you got 2 of those. Inside here is your controller, which looks like this, and also your power supply. Okay, so get all that unpackaged, and we'll start hanging this thing. So now it's time to attach your Govee light curtain to the panel you just built. Get your 2 panels out and drape them over, the top of the frame, left panel, right panel, and use some strips of duct tape to kind of tack them up there in loops like this. You see this loop. Then what you want to do is you want to hook up the power to the 2 panels. So you got your controller, which is plugged into the power supply, and the output of the controller plugs into this this box here. It's like the panel driver box, which has another cable that goes down to the second panel. You plug it in there. Fire up your app and set the background to an image, color you like. I picked blue. It's good on my eyes. And you're ready to start putting this thing together, or fastening to the panel. The reason I suggest you do this under power is the first time I didn't do it under power. I got it all set up, powered up, and I discovered there was one strand that when you wiggled it, it was turn on and off. So if you do this under power, as you're moving stuff around, everything should stay on all the time. And if it doesn't, you got an issue. Fortunately, Govee was really good about it. I sent them a video of what was happening, and they sent me a whole new kit. And they said I didn't have to return the first one I had bought. So kudos to Govee on that. So let's go over the very first place you're going to start when you start attaching this thing to the panel. So these light strips, it's about approximately 3 inches in between each one. So the left panel, the rightmost string, has to be 1.5 inches to the left of center. So you have center marked on here. You should, from when we put this together. And then the right panel, leftmost string, again, 1.5 inches to the right of center. That gives you your 3 inches between the 2 panels, and then the 3 continues here. Now, when you wire these, or not, when you zip tie these things, I'm going to show you an example of how to do it, because there's a right way and a wrong way. You want them to be like mounted so that the back of the mounting string or the cable is exactly behind it. You don't want it hanging down or off to the side or anything like that. So the way you can achieve that is if you zip tie, as I show you right now. So let me do this one right here for you. So you want to pass it behind the wire, and when you bring it forward, you don't want to crimp any of the mesh in with it. So you bring it up underneath like that. Okay. And then you're going to zip tie it just to the right of where this wire goes into the T there. You bring it up. And then pull this portion down to the bottom of the T. Get a good grip on it, and then tighten it up really good. So I did to the right of that. Now we're going to do another one here. Again, I'm going to thread this so it doesn't include, you don't want the mesh to be in on it. All right. I missed them. It's not, the mesh is not going to be tied into it. Pull this down to the bottom like that. Make it nice and snug. And we got that one. So notice how this is, the wires, the hanging wires behind it. It's not hanging down like something like that. You don't want that. You want the wire to be behind it. That's why you put this on the very bottom of the T. All the T connectors are zip tied. It's looking really good. I got the panel driver boxes tied down using some zip ties. This panel faces west. The weather comes out of the west, so I have the face of these panel drivers facing the weather. They're IP66, so it shouldn't really matter, but I want to make sure that water would not sit like where the wires go in or anything like that. So in this orientation, it should improve their imperviousness to water penetration. And so now we're ready to move on to the next step. All right, the goals of the design of this panel are to keep the panel rectangular, keep the panel from moving around too much in high winds, and to keep all the LEDs facing the direction, in one direction, okay? So you get nice, the best possible display of the text or the images that you want to put onto the panel. Okay, right now, you can see, you know, there's LEDs facing to the left, to the right, forward, backwards, and so that diminishes from the image. So the last step before you can call this complete is another sewing project. And what we're going to do is you're going to sew each strand into this mesh. And because it's sewn into the mesh, you do it in such a fashion that all the LEDs are facing forward. Okay, so when you sew them, you know, you want to stretch down to make sure that the wire is facing in the same direction. And then, you know, loop it through here and pull it out. And you're going to be doing like every other one mostly, but you'll see as you start sewing, sometimes you have to skip one or two. But the goal is to have like the mesh behind the LED and it weaved in between two, because that's going to give you your best holding factor. Okay. And so you'll figure it out as you do a few of these. But the important thing is each time you sew it, make sure, again, you're not sewing with a twist in the line. So run down like this and then do the next one, okay? You could just do every other one, but what'll happen is you'll see some will line up like that. You know, as a purist, that bothers me to have that mesh covering up the LED. So to me, that's a bad sew. So I'm going to take that one out. But in the scheme of things, from far away, you would never see that. So, you know, it's up to you. It's your panel. Start sewing. Okay, so I have 3 4-inch S hooks for hanging this up onto the wire. You can see them right here. The S hook does not have any wires between it and the pipe. And there's the first one, the second one in the middle, and then the third one is on the end. So it's just a matter of picking this thing up and hooking these onto the wire. And then I'll probably put a zip tie right here in each one. Make sure it doesn't skip off the wire, although the weight of this should keep it down, and that shouldn't happen. Today we got 20-mile-an-hour winds with some higher gusts, and the panel just handles it very well. It's that rebar in the bottom. It kind of keeps it very stable, and then the stabilizing cables keeps it from turning side to side. Mounting panel is very stable in wind. We have about 10-15 mile per hour winds this evening. All the LEDs are still facing forward after going around for days. You can see it kind of float in space there as the wind pushes it back, but it goes side to side. It's very stable. I have to say the little snippet that you could use to do AI generated stuff is kind of cool. They just thrown together the sign very easy, very quick. God bless the USA, right? Well, I'm very happy with mounting this the way I have. The Govee panel mount design works. Looks good, nice and rectangular. Earlier today I put it up, it was high winds. I mean high winds, 40-mile-per-hour winds. And the thing was very stable, no sideways action. Of course it was blowing this way, but it was just like a sail with a bunch of holes in it, so just billowed a little bit, but it still retained its shape, and all the LEDs after all that blowing are still all facing forward. So this is a success, it's a take, and I hope you enjoyed this video.